we're going to talk about teamwork. So there is a brilliant man whom I absolutely adore. His name is Marcus Buckingham. He is a researcher. He researches the unmeasurable kind of things. It's not like things you can count. It's like what makes people resilient and what makes people love their jobs and stuff like that. His latest book is Love and Work. Check it out. It's incredible. He also has like courses on how to apply this stuff, and I've taken them. They're incredible. I absolutely love them. So with his thought with this, and I 100% agree, is that teams are the most powerful, elegant, and effective tools / technology that humans have ever created. And they've been around for about 40,000 years, is his perspective. And he says that teams, in their purest, most effective form, is when every single person is allowed to be themselves and follow what they love towards a common goal. Because what I notice is not what you're going to notice. And that's fine. That's good. That's the point of a team. Because if we all see and focus on the same things, we're missing a vast array of problems and opportunities because we're all thinking the same way. So the goal of a team is to get a bunch of people who see and love and notice a bunch of different stuff, and we come together and we're like, ooh, hey, I'll grab this and you grab that, and it'll be awesome, and it'll make us like more effective towards that goal. And I don't know about you, but I have experienced that in the workplace where when somebody is given the freedom to kind of figure something else out that may not be in their job description, sometimes that actually elevates the team. And I love that. And that person has like a little bit more of a vibrancy to them in that process when they get to solve something, a problem that they see, and they're like, ooh, I have a way to do this. It brings more life, and I love that. So in storytelling, the same is true. When you have, and we've all seen them, there's a bazillion of them, and they have their place, and I love them. But when you have your stories where you have your hero or your heroine who doesn't need anybody, and they're the ones who pull it all off, and they're bloody and broken and and they pull it off in the 11th hour all by themselves, and everybody's just like, wow. It can make for an amazing show. Die Hard is one of my favorite movies. The original, it's brilliant. It's great. I did not watch it for Christmas this year. I need to... Oh. Okay. Sorry. That's sad. I love Die Hard. And one of the things I love about it is it's just this guy who's like, well, bother, I'm in this situation, and he has to figure it out. And it's really cool. And I watched the other ones and they're great, but there's something so beautiful about his surprise that he has to be the hero and he has to like do this, and he's like, I don't have any backup. What am I gonna do? And I love that he has limitations, and he like his life would be, and this whole situation would be so much easier if he could just, people would work with him, but they don't. So as we go on in the Die Hard series, and in any of the series where we've got a hero who comes along and has to figure it all out by themselves, it becomes like a, okay, I'm gonna go sit in the box office, or not the box, the theater, and watch Tom Cruise save the day again, you know? And it can be really good storytelling, but we know the outcome. And we're often, with TV shows and movies and blockbusters and all that kind of stuff, sometimes the storytelling can get a bit flat because we have to have the hero do the hero thing. So, I've discovered that a lot of the stories that I'm enjoying lately have been more complex in that, yes, we have a protagonist, but we also have some side characters who really, really matter. They have really impressive storylines, and they're essential to the main story. And I love that because it's creating a lot more interest to the main characters. Are they willing to share the spotlight? Is kind of an interesting thing. So one of the best and quickest, like, I talk about movies and TV shows because in the age of Netflix, you can access them pretty quickly, and so you don't have to sit down and read like 7 books in order to see what I'm talking about. So that's kind of why I've been sitting a little bit more on TV shows and movies. But I am going to talk about books today. But the first example, if you want a quick one, is BBC's Merlin, which I absolutely adore. I love this show. And yes, there's a bit of a repetitive cycle, 100%. But one of the episodes I want to talk about real quick is there is an episode where Arthur discovers that his men with whom he is training, his knights, don't necessarily take their best shot at him because they are trying to preserve his life. He is the future king. And he's really, really irritated about it because suddenly he's like, well, am I as good as I think I am? So that starts a whole new thing, and he has to actually come to grips with the privilege of being a prince and how that shifts how people are interacting with him. And that's brilliant. That really kicks off his arc from the Pratt to the once and future king. And it's beautiful. It is a foundational episode in his change, and I love it. But it wouldn't happen if he didn't wind up having to let somebody else take the spotlight, basically. So the other story that I wanted to talk about that I think really emphasizes this in a very detailed, like upfront sort of way is the All Souls Trilogy by Deborah Harkness. My second book is on audiobook, so I need to get a physical copy, but I haven't done it yet. So this one is really fun because you're dealing with vampires who have been around since ancient times. And they've gone through and expanded and really solidified into their identity as the de Clermonts in medieval Europe, where etiquette between the classes, between family members, between religious and political figures, exceptionally well defined. And they are a very military family because of that time where religion and politics and military were so in bed together you couldn't figure out which piece was which, kind of thing. So you have these very ancient families that have functioned in every level, on every plane that they possibly can get their fingers into that pie, and they've figured out over the centuries who's best at what. So there's a hierarchy that exists in the families, in their political systems, and just in their culture altogether. And so what's beautiful is the rigidity of their rules also allows for some really interesting fluidity when you throw in somebody who's very young by comparison and has no idea and no value for these rules. And so suddenly you have basically a wild card that's thrown into this very well-defined structure, and it suddenly starts shifting the pieces and allowing some of the rules to become more fluid So yes, they're still functioning within their main, if you think of it as like chess pieces, you have your knights, you have your bishops, you have your pawns, and all that kind of stuff. But suddenly, you know, a pawn can become a bishop, or a bishop can become a knight. And so by throwing in a witch into this situation, you suddenly have Marcus, who has always just kind of been the younger son, who kind of likes the human vibe a little bit better. He is a little bit more of a revolutionary. He suddenly has to like fulfill roles that he has never intended to fulfill, but he's doing it his way, which is beautiful. And then you have Matthew de Clermont, who has very rigidly defined roles in the family, and he has to figure out a way to make space for the other members of his family, including his wife. If that was a spoiler, I'm so sorry. It's a vampire novel. It's a romance. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, it's just he has to figure out a way to let his family breathe a bit in their space and in who they are and that kind of thing. And what's interesting is you have several different characters who aren't the main protagonists, but they have very essential roles, and some of them come up with a way to solve several of the main problems within the novels that Matthew, who's our main vampire guy, he would never have come up with. He can't come up with them. He's not equipped. That is not how his brain works. That's not his value system. Like, no, he's not capable of finding that answer. And what's beautiful is Deborah Harkness knew that, and she allowed him to continue to be Matthew, and she allowed the people around him to supply what he doesn't know. So she has a really beautifully crafted team in the form of a family that forces each of her characters to grow and expand and get better and get bigger as themselves, and do the same for everybody else, which ideally is what teams should do. It should allow us to have the space to be ourselves more and be bigger and take on more responsibility for what we see and love and do really well, because it's intrinsic to who we are and how we think and what we notice. So what I love about it is, yes, there are moments where we have a character coming in and they're doing the heroic thing, but sometimes that's like not the right call. And the rest of them are like, that wasn't the right call. Or it's like I'm going to make this call because this is who I am, and I know my team. I know what they're going to do if I do this. And it becomes a more layered, elegant, interesting experience for the reader, but also for the characters. They get to grow, they get to be the thing. And it becomes a much more complex story when you have several different characters that you can trust to solve this problem and to be in this situation together. So this is I love it. I love it. I'll see you later.